My oh my, what a story we have tonight. Let's talk about a simple man whose name is now written in the history books of Kenya. His name is Francis Karioko Muruatetu. Now Francis was not a politician. He was not a famous lawyer. He was not a big businessman. He was a prisoner, sitting on death row at Committee Maximum Security Prison. He had been convicted of murder. But Francis believed something was deeply wrong with the system, not just for him, but for many others locked away and waiting for the hangman's noose. He decided to do something that most people would think is impossible. From behind prison walls, he challenged the law of the land. It had been in place for decades. It all started with a crime. Muruatetu, along with another man, was found guilty of the murder of a landowner in 2000. The courts did their job, the evidence was presented, and the judge delivered the verdict: guilty. At that time, the judge had no other choice. His hands were tied. The only sentence available for murder was death. So, Francis Muruatetu was sentenced to die. He became one of thousands in Kenya living under a mandatory death sentence. No hope, no review, no consideration of unique circumstances. It was a final, unchangeable decision. But inside that prison, an idea began to grow. Muruatetu saw he was not alone. Different story, different background, different reasons. Yet the law treated them all exactly the same. It was like a machine. So how did Francis Muruatetu argue his case? It was brilliant, just brilliant. He and his lawyers went to the Supreme Court with a powerful argument rooted in Kenya's 2010 Constitution, celebrated for its strong protection of human rights. Their main point? The mandatory death sentence violated fundamental rights. They said it was cruel, inhuman, degrading treatment. It treated every person convicted of murder as a faceless, nameless statistic, not as a human being with a unique story. It stripped them of dignity by refusing to hear personal circumstances before deciding fate. Their argument went deeper. They pointed to the right to a fair trial. A fair trial doesn't end with guilty or not guilty. It must include a fair sentencing process. A key part: allow the accused to present mitigating evidence, to tell the court why they deserve a lesser punishment. By making the death sentence automatic, Section 204 of the Penal Code denied this right. They argued judges must use discretion, their judicial mind, to determine a sentence that fits the crime and the offender. Furthermore, the team said the mandatory sentence violated separation of powers. Legislature, Parliament makes the laws. Executive, the President and government enforce the laws. Judiciary, the courts interpret and apply the laws. Forcing judges to issue a specific sentence meant Parliament was overstepping and interfering with judicial independence. The Supreme Court listened carefully. This wasn't just another case. It was a moment of national importance. Judges heard powerful testimony about death row conditions and the psychological torture of living under a mandatory sentence. The case became a national conversation about the meaning of justice. Was justice retribution and blind rules, or fairness, dignity, and the possibility of redemption? Francis Muruatetu, the prisoner from Committee, forced the nation to confront this question. The stage was set for a historic decision. And then, on December 14, 2017, the moment came. The Supreme Court of Kenya, led by then Chief Justice David Maraga, delivered its judgment. My oh my, it was a thunderbolt. The court agreed with Francis Muruatetu. In a landmark decision, the judges declared that the mandatory nature of the death penalty, as written in Section 204 of the Penal Code, was unconstitutional. They found it inconsistent with the Bill of Rights in the 2010 Constitution. Taking away a court's discretion to sentence was a violation of the right to a fair trial. Every accused person has the right to present mitigating evidence before a sentence is passed. This decision did not abolish the death penalty. The death penalty remains in Kenya's law books. The court made it discretionary, not mandatory. Judges now have a choice. After finding someone guilty of murder, a judge can consider all the circumstances of the case and the offender. The judge can impose the death penalty, life imprisonment, or a specific prison term. The power to sentence was given back to the judiciary. It was a huge victory for the rule of law. The impact was immediate and massive. It applied to thousands on death row. The Supreme Court directed that those sentenced under the old system had the right to new sentencing hearings. Many had their sentences changed to life imprisonment, many to fixed-term sentences, and some were even released, a colossal task but necessary for a fairer justice system. Muruatetu's case is more than one man's story. It shows that justice must be tempered with mercy. It underscores a progressive constitution and an independent judiciary protecting rights. Sentencing is no longer automatic, but thoughtful and human. Francis Muruatetu, who fought from his prison cell, reminded the nation every life has a story that deserves to be heard. What a legacy, smokin'.